some cartoons and vodka and do them all night long. Are you ready for some fun? Drink 'em down, drink 'em down, drink 'em down. Drink 'em down, drink 'em down, drink 'em down. Oh.
At one point in this chunk of questionable content, Faye's therapist makes a relationship diagram to map out a scenario, and it uses maybe a third of the cast at this point. This story is about to start sprawling. We may have to make our own character chart.
Charts? Oh, please let me make the charts. I love making charts.
Yes, that is a character trait we wrote for you for a one-off gag years ago.
What?
Nothing. Ignore me. Now, I think it's important we recall that Faye and Martin had emotional entanglement, but didn't get together, so Dora, Faye's boss, started dating him. Which is why Faye and Dora are having a sleep-deprived kitchen meeting in their jammies. Dora is still all worried about Faye and Martin realizing they love each other and throwing her out like last week's salad. Faye assures her that she is letting her feelings for Marty evolve, and the only reason she is plotting Dora's downfall is because that's just what she does. She really needs to get laid.
Crystal, why are you stabbing that clown?
'Cause I'm horny!
What does that have to do with it?
On the subject of getting Faye laid, she and Hanners bump into Sven at a karaoke bar. They have a song battle going from Fat-Bottomed Girls to You're So Vain, and the night is capped off with Hanners' panic-filled rendition of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. They crash at Sven's place, cause I guess it's closer, and after a flippant remark from Sven, Faye decides it's time to get her fuck on. In the morning, Hanners sees them in bed and has a panic attack. Faye wakes up, can't believe what she just did, and has a panic attack. Then Faye visits Hanners' place to get their story straight, and there's just a lot of yelling. Hanners is terrible at keeping secrets, so the lid only stays on this one for like a day. And Dora is not happy. Dora is really mad that Faye slept with Sven, because she's convinced that this was an attempt to get back at her for dating Martin. And I don't really see how that's a burn, necessarily. It's not like she slept with your dad. Martin is much more pragmatic about it. Yeah, he had feelings for Faye, but it's good she got laid, and the jealous part of his brain has been pretty thoroughly ridden into submission by Dora fuckings. And Dora isn't really happy that Martin isn't on the same anger wavelength as she is. I'm with Martin here. She's not doing emotions healthy right now. But then he calls her irrational when she's already mad. No, Martin! Don't play hopscotch in a minefield while blindfolded! Ooh. That was very preventable. Martin goes out drinking and commiserating with Steve, who's still dating that girl whose roommate is her former too-perfect boyfriend. And Hanners is here too. Steve is a bro, but he knows that when someone is angry is exactly the worst time to tell them their anger isn't logical. They get loaded, which is when Hanners has to push back on them blaming their issues on ladies, which like good lads they hear and respond to with fucking dudes. When Martin gets home, he has a proper talk about how Dora has a nasty sibling rivalry with how easy Sven's life has been. This section has a lot more stuff happen with Dora and Martin's relationship. It becomes clear that Dora has trust issues, and the circumstances of how she got with Martin is doing nothing to ease her worries. Later, Martin gets hit on while working at the library, and the girl he turned down just so happens to mention it while grabbing coffee, prompting Dora to pull out the sword.
There can be only one.
But then Dora decides to turn this hilarious event into some kind of bullshit relationship test, jumping all over Martin when he doesn't immediately volunteer that he was hit on while at work. The story going so quickly from goofy slapstick sword stuff to actual relationship drama could be jarring, but it isn't. The story never goes so far with the slapstick that you lose all sense of reality, and the characters have enough issues that even when they make light of their issues, you don't lose a sense of their humanity. And it's certainly not all doom and gloom for the Goths. They're still a sweet couple, and there was the very funny incident of them going to fuck in the copy room at Martin's work, but they accidentally walked in on some old college professors already fucking in there. Martin got a raise out of that incident. Martin also gets to visit Dora's parents. It goes pretty well until Dora's dad reveals he's jacked off to pictures of Martin's mom. Martin counters with, "Your daughter has put my penis in her mouth." The girl who hit on Martin gets given Steve's number, which she is very interested in. Steve eventually gets dumped by Mina and disappears for a while into a drinking spiral. He is rescued after being recruited as a government spy, and Steve ends up defeating a Bond villain in a volcano. No, this isn't a joke. We meet the Russian agent Tortura at least twice after this montage page. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you waiting for me to get back to Faye and Sven fucking? Well, you're just gonna have to keep waiting, because I got a lot of other characters to talk about first. Pint Size is up to his usual shenanigans. One of the first things in this chunk is Winslow gets to try out a prototype human android frame sent to Hanners by her dad. It's a bit uncanny valley, so it gets put back in the box, but not before Hanners grabs some ass. We also get to meet some new androids. First, the Linux-based Neckbeard, who is mostly for taking jabs at elitist PC builders. There's also the anime-inspired Momo, who is adorable, but also capable of devastating electric shocks for self-defense. I want to draw attention to this page of Pint Size feeling like he's out of material. This isn't the last time Jeff will write lines like this for Pint Size, and it's still not true. Raven has a boyfriend for some of this. He's a hobo from Canada. This doesn't last long. He's mostly here for a quick set of jokes, but their off-panel breakup gives us probably the best summation of Raven as a character in one panel. He's an anarcho-primitivist. I agree with Chomsky's view that it's untenable as a political belief system. Plus, he's really into anal. Like, ew. We get introduced to Will, a poet friend of Sven's who falls hard for Penelope after meeting her at the coffee shop. His decidedly anachronistic form of courtship is charming for her, but after failing to protect her from a bear, Will decides he needs to find his manliness and leaves town for a cross-country motorcycle odyssey, the sheer romantic energy of which manages to ensnare Penelope. Also makes for a convenient time jump. The band loses Natasha, which isn't a big deal since at least now the band is entirely made up of people who actually want to make listenable music. Apparently Amir is in his mid-30s. Couldn't tell. Hannelore is still up to her weirding ways and is still amazing. That is all. Ty does some drugs and sees dragons. She also decides to get her clit pierced and drags Martin along for the experience. Then she and Dora coo about it. And for a sort of extra diegetic note, we are first introduced to Yelling Bird. Yelling Bird is from a side comic Jeff had at the time and would be used for interstitials when Jeff couldn't get out a scheduled comic or had announcements. He's awful and uses really creative profanity. I like Yelling Bird. Oh, I guess that's enough stalling. Let's talk about Faye's fucking Sven. What the fuck did I just say? So after going through a freak out with her therapist, Faye is generally glad she got laid, but isn't really looking to do it again because Sven is a philandering jerk. She lets him know this, and Sven is actually kinda hurt. He's not used to getting left after loving. But this resolution on Faye's part only lasts a little while, and they start fucking again. Not dating, just getting together for fun sex. It's a potentially healthy relationship, but Faye isn't willing to ask for the emotional intimacy she wants, nor would Sven really be able to give it. So they are fuck buddies, but Faye demands it be exclusive, which Sven flippantly says he can't commit to. Around this time, Sven gets an intern, Lydia. He kinda agreed to this while drunk, but decides some more structure in his life would be healthy. His songwriting technique is a bit holistic for a teaching environment, but he makes an effort, and Lydia has some solid life advice for the jerk. I like Lydia. Things come to a head when Sven hooks up with a country music star. He feels shitty about it, but isn't planning to tell Faye. Lydia puts the kibosh on that, flat out refusing to lie for him. So Sven owns up, and the usually violent Faye can't really do anything but wander off with a hurt look. Well, this has some nasty ramifications. Faye feels betrayed, Sven feels like shit, and Dora is not happy with her brother. And around this time of emotional vulnerability, we get the return of Angus. He actually came back earlier after a long absence from the coffee shop because he had a girlfriend who hated the coffee shop and was also a huge bitch. Remember this, it's really important, do not forget. Angus has eased off his smarm routine, so even though Faye isn't really ready for a relationship right now, their fight flirting is a lot more mutual and balanced compared to his early appearances. They trade thrift shopping tips and go drunk sledding. Or at least, Hanners tries to force them to go drunk sledding. Before we close the book on this section of questionable content, I have a new character to introduce. Momo's companion and Angus's roommate, Marigold. Pint-Size tried to rewire himself and it did not go well. Momo recommends that they visit her companion Marigold, who is good with computers. Marigold is a World of Warcraft playing Fujoshi, and her room is filthy. She's a fairly stereotypical basement nerd, except she doesn't live in a basement. Rather than paying her for the tech support, Dora calls in Hannelore to end the mess. Hannelore and Marigold end up becoming very close friends. They have extremely different issues, but they make a fun, not at all queer-baiting pair. I want to re-emphasize that. Hanners doesn't do sex, and Marigold is very hetero. Still didn't stop a bunch of fans from being really creepy at the time. Marigold is a good addition to the cast. She lets Jeff tap into some game and anime nerd jokes, and Marbear is decidedly less self-aware than most of the cast. Self-critical, sure, but also just kinda clueless. Looks great in a corset, though. Whew! There is a lot of stuff that happened in this chunk of questionable content. I didn't even get to all of it. I didn't get to Martin and Angus bonding, like half the robot shenanigans, or the more experimental internal monologue and dream sequence comics. QC is starting to look a lot more like the comic its longtime fans remember, and there's just so much fun stuff still to go. I'm so looking forward to it. We still have to go to space! It's gonna be great. Till next time, I'm Pluto Burns, and this has been Eagle Land.